Hello, everyone who's just joining. Welcome to Grow with Google Workshop. We're going to get started here in just a few. So this is going to be a lunch and learn. You know, grab your lunch, something to drink, and we're going to get right into the weeds and deep how you can ace your next. We'll give people just a few more minutes to either log in or to channel. Okay, we are right here at noon, so we're just going ahead and start it again. Welcome. My name is Mia Lowry, and I'm here to present to you the Google Workshop Ace Your Next Job Interview. We're going to discuss a few practical strategies that you can use to excel at job interviews. I'll be giving you some concrete steps where you can take to self-confident and while you communicate clearly and present your potential employer. So again, my name is Mila Lowry. I am currently reside in Orlando, Florida. I am a member of Eta Alpha Pi Sorority Incorporated, and today I serve as the presenter for this particular discussion. So when you think about interviews, well, let's back up a little bit. If the word job interview makes you feel kind of nervous, you're not alone. But it's important to remember that an interview is more than a hurdle between you and your next job. Actually, y'all, an interview is a chance to speak with and potentially learn from someone in a field that interest you. It's also an opportunity to hear directly from someone about what it's like to work in the particular field you're interested in, to discover how their team may function or how their company does business. A great interview can benefit your career whether or not you land the job because it allows you to make a new contact. So even if one position, for example, isn't a perfect fit, it can lead you toward another one that will be. Plus, you'll be able to meet people who might become mentors or who can introduce you to someone else who will have that perfect role. Remember, it's also important that acing your interview isn't actually about being perfect, but rather best interviews are about connecting, that connection with your interviewers and making it clear how much you have to offer to their team. The best way to connect is to relax, be fully present during the interview itself. Now, in this workshop, you'll learn several ways to accomplish that. Now, we're going to discuss steps you can take to make sure you'll start your next interview feeling confident and ready to connect. In order to do that, we're divided this presentation up into 3 sections. So there's prepare, practice, and be present. Prepare is where you will walk through the steps you'll need to self-ready for the interview. Practice is more about practicing, right? Practicing your interview. Also providing you tips with doing mock interviews with a friend. Being present is where you'll learn tips to keep yourself calm, cool, and collected during the interview so you can clearly communicate the value you can bring to the new job, team, or company. Now, let's talk about preparing your interview. The more thorough your preparation, the more relaxed and present you can be during your actual interview. In this section, you'll learn how to research the company, figure out what questions you'll likely need to be asked, craft a concise elevator pitch to introduce yourself, prepare questions for your interviewer, and make sure you're physically and mentally ready for your interview. The first, maybe the most important thing you can do to prepare for an interview is really research. Your research will help you make an informed and compelling case for how you can contribute to a company and why they should hire you. Now, the slide that you're looking at right now should show a diagram with 5 ways to research a job: a company website, social media, professional networking site, news articles, and friends, family, or social network. Now, as you research, take notes about what you learned so you can refer to them before the interview. You want to start with the company's official website. Read over as much of the site as possible. Focus especially on the company's mission and values. What are they seeking to accomplish in the world, and how can you contribute to that mission? If you can, read about the people you are interviewing with or the department where you're planning to interview, and check for recent news or announcements. The next thing you should do is check the company's social media account to see how they manage their public image online. How do they connect with their users? Are there any social or philanthropic issues that the company supports? Then find the company on professional networking sites. Some sites even have anonymous employee reviews. And that way you can learn about how employees feel, such as Glassdoor. Professional networking sites like LinkedIn can also be a great place to search for more details about the hiring manager or other people who you know will be interviewing with. Seeing their work history and background may even help you. You want to also try to find connections and understand the areas of expertise so you can be better prepared and anticipate their questions. Search for recent news articles about the company. These can give you a sense of challenges the company is facing and how its actions are impacting the greater community. See whether anyone in your friends, family, or social network is able to introduce you to someone who works at the company or in a related field. Then you can research out to this person to request an informational interview. That's pretty good, in which you can ask them questions about their experiences working for the company or in the field. All of this is going to help you gain leverage. Being able to speak to the company's goals will show a prospective employer that you're truly interested in the company and in performing in the job. It will also allow you to have a deeper conversation with your potential employer and make sure that your values and strengths align with the company's mission and values. Now, there are two common styles of interview questions that you should be prepared for: behavioral and situational. Behavioral is when an interviewer asks you how you handled a station in the past and from your work history or experience. For example, the question might be, tell me about a time when you overcame an obstacle. Situational is when an interviewer asks you about a hypothetical situation in the future. For example, if you are a new lead on a project, how would you get yourself and your new team set up for success? We'll talk more about the best way to answer those questions here in just a moment. Now, because behavioral questions focus on a past experience, you want to include plenty of detail and data to support your answer. You can try preparing answers that include these four areas: situation, task, action, and result. Sometimes this is referred to as STAR. Be prepared to describe the situation, the task you were directly responsible for, the action you took, and the results that achieved with as much detail as possible. Instead of saying, I increased sales, it would be better to say, I increased sales by 20% this year by reaching and converting new leads. Now let's dig into our previous example of a situational question. If you were a new lead on a project, how would you get yourself and your new team set up for success? Now, it's important to answer this question with specific examples of actions you would take. For example, I would first want to determine what our key objectives are and how we're measuring success. I would then clarify our resources, determine our roles and responsibilities, and then set important milestones to reach our goal. It can also be useful to, again, think about examples from your past where you encountered similar situations. For example, in my last role, I set up my team for success by making sure we all had daily and weekly goals to track progress. Make sure to show your potential employer how the two situations are related and how what you learned from your previous situation gives you better insight and experience for the hypothetical situation. Something like this. The goals wouldn't be the same at the company, but the process for establishing and reporting on them would be the same. I've learned that the team is more engaged when everyone can provide input on the goals and when we track them in place that everyone can see. In addition to practicing behavioral and situational interview questions, you can also find another sample interview questions online that are specific to the job you're applying for. For example, if you search the web for data analyst interview questions, hundreds of results will come up. Even if the job you're applying to is less common, give it a try. If you're having trouble getting results for the job you want, experiment with different search terms or search for interview questions within the industry you're interested in. There are also commonly asked interview questions that aren't specific to any particular field, which employers use to get a sense of who you are and how you might approach your work. These are questions like, what is your greatest strength and biggest area of improvement? Or, where did you see yourself in 5 years? Or maybe your current job. How do you deal with stressful situations? And do you prefer working on your own or with a team? Once you have an idea of the questions you might be asked, you have the advantage of being able to practice your answers. We'll talk more about that in the practice section of this workshop. But for now, let's talk about how to handle one of the most common and most surprisingly difficult interview questions today. Ready? Tell me about yourself. While it's not technically a question, this prompt is often the first thing a potential employer asks of you. I'm going to give you 20 seconds to answer it right now, out loud, the way you would in an interview. Now, don't think about it too hard. Just do your best. Tell me about yourself. Okay, 20 seconds is up. How did you do? We've come to realize that it's not always easy to mention the most relevant details when you're asked a very broad question like that. That's why we're going to spend a little time talking about your elevator pitch, which is a quick summary of what you have to offer. The term elevator pitch comes from the idea that if someone stepped into an elevator with you, you could introduce yourself and give an idea of what you have to offer before the elevator arrives at its destination. An elevator pitch allows you to introduce yourself and what you have to offer early in the interview. You can lead with the information you're most proudest of, and that will be the most interesting to the employer. Here are a few tips for a successful elevator pitch. Keep in mind, you don't have to memorize this verbatim, but you should practice and become familiar with the main point just to make sure the information you have is most important to you. Keep in mind your elevator pitch should be anywhere between 30 to 60 seconds long. Your pitch should include the 3 main components: who you are, what you do, and why they should hire you. Again, it's who you are, what you do, and why they should hire you. Now that you're prepared to answer your interview questions, make sure you're prepared for a few questions of your own. Asking questions during an interview is important because it's a way to demonstrate that you've invested time learning about the company and the job opening. Also, it shows that you're approaching the job thoughtfully. While you don't want to overwhelm your interviewer with too many questions, it's good to have at least 3 in mind or written down before you start the interview. You might think of more questions organically over the course of the interview, but having a few prepared will ensure you're able to show that you're approaching the job thoughtfully. If your research leads you to think of questions, here are a few options to help you. What does growth look like within this company? What qualities does your ideal candidate have? What's your favorite thing about working here? What do you see as the biggest challenge for someone in this position? And how do you measure success for this position? Now, as you write your questions, please avoid ones that can be easily answered by a careful reading of the job description or other basic research. Asking a question that's already been answered for you can make it seem as if you didn't prepare enough for the interview. Now that we've covered how to prepare your questions, let's talk about a few ways you can prepare your physical self for the interview. Remember, every decision you make early in the process is a decision you don't have to focus on in the hours and minutes leading up to your interview. Decide what you want to wear. If you can, do a little research about the company dress code. It's probably better to be slightly overdressed than underdressed for your interview. Choose an outfit and styling that makes you feel comfortable and confident, and make sure the clothes you choose are clean and in great condition, well for your interview. This advice also applies if you'll be interviewing remotely. What you wear matters, and issues like wrinkled clothing may be even more apparent on camera. Prepare mentally by reading over your resume several times so that you know it backwards and forwards. You may want to print out a copy to keep with you during the interview itself. If your interviewer will take place online, if your interview will take place online, you'll need to prepare the space where you'll take the video call. Choose the most private, quiet space available. Take care that your background isn't too busy or distracting. Make sure it doesn't reveal any personal information about you that you may not want to share. Having an unmade bed behind you might make your presentation memorable, but it won't necessarily give you the impression you're hoping for. If you need to take your interview from a private space, such as a bedroom, be sure to learn in advance how to blur out your background. Finally, be sure to let other people who share your space know when your presentation will take place, and ask them for support like childcare if you need it. Remember to turn your phone's ringer off and take steps to limit any other potential distractions. Now, the practice section is really, about skill. Like, interviewing is really a skill. And like any other skill, the more you practice, the better you become. Mock interviews will allow you to practice answering questions smoothly and make a great impression on your interviewer. In this section, we'll cover things you should prepare to make the most out of your mock interview. I'll show you how to answer questions clearly and effectively, give you tips for holding your mock interviews, and tell you about a new Google tool that uses machine learning to practice interviewing on your own. Helpful ways to practice your interviewing skills is to hold a mock interview. Now, it might feel a little odd at first, but having a friend or a coworker or a family member stand in for your interviewer will allow you to prepare your answers and notice where your interviewing skills may need some polishing. Ask someone whose opinion you trust to join you for a mock interview. In return, you can switch roles to them if they need to practice. Doing a mock interview virtually can help you get ahead of any technical problems and notice whether you need to make any adjustments to your setup. Whether your mock interview is in person or remote, you'll also get feedback on the clarity and effectiveness of the answers you give. If your interview will be held online, find out what video conferencing app or software your interviewer will use so you can practice on that exact one. Before your mock interview, prepare answers to questions you're likely to be asked. Look through the job description for clues about the qualities you need to embody to be hired for the job. This slide includes an example of a job listing with keywords you might want to highlight, like relationship building, communication, and success metrics. Once you have a list of qualities your interviewer will most likely be looking for, think of ways to demonstrate that you possess those skills. Think about times you've shown those skills or qualities in your career and go through to remind yourself of times you demonstrated those qualities. You'll want to work those into the conversation during your interview. Now, whenever possible, use specific examples during your interview. Specificity is powerful. Sharing a brief story or experience about yourself is more impactful than simply telling someone you possess certain qualities. For example, if you're asked about sales skills, it's better to say, I sold an average of 5 widgets per day, which was the most of my team, than to say, I'm great at sales. Remember, it's important that the interviewer gets a full picture of you and your capabilities. So don't hold back in talking about what you've accomplished. Let them know you're a good fit for the job by sharing your experiences. You can also revisit STAR approach we touched on when we introduced behavioral interview questions. Think of maybe 2 to 3 accomplishments and practice, describing the situation, making clear what tasks you were directly responsible for, providing details about the actions you took, and include tangible results. Google has created a free online tool that can help you prepare to make a best impression during interviews. Whether or not you have someone to do mock interviews with, here is a video about the interview warming up tool. I will work to get the video out if you request it, okay?
There are more than 1.3 million job openings in the U.S. and fast-growing high-paying fields like support, UX design.
Okay. Now, on the right side of the slide, it shows 3 sample questions from the interview warm-up tool. Looking for in your next job? What are your career goals for the next 5 years? And when do you try to push through and solve a problem on your own? And when do you involve others on your team? These are specifically designed practice interviews, questions rather, for the fields of data analytics, commerce, IT support, project management, and UX design, or you can just select a general interview to practice for another field. To try this tool on your own, visit grow.google/certificate/interview-warmup. The next section is be present, and I believe this is our final section. Now, you know how to prepare and practice for your interview. Those steps are important because they will support you in being centered and focused on your conversation with your interviewer. Instead of being distracted by your technical setup or worrying about what to say, you'll be able to give all your attention to the person or people conducting your interview. Being fully present will allow you to show up as your best self. And in this section, we'll talk about a few ways you can do that. Now let's take a moment. Whether it's in person or online, the minutes leading up to your interview can sometimes produce a lot of anxiety. People have lots of different reactions to a job interview, particularly for a job they really want to land. Maybe your adrenaline starts pumping or your mouth goes dry. Whatever your reaction is, take a moment to notice and acknowledge it without passing judgment on yourself. Take a breath. Since you put time and energy into preparation and practice, you'll be ready. In the minutes before your interview, take the time to remind yourself about 2 or 3 things you want to make sure your interviewers know by the end of the interview. If you're doing your interview remotely, you can have those things written on a sticky note nearby. Just make sure that you don't look at it too frequently during your interview. Here are a few examples of those things you might want your interviewers to come away with. I'm enthusiastic. I'm detail oriented. I doubled sales for my team last year. I care deeply about the issue this nonprofit works on. I'm a team player. I have great work ethic. I'm a people person and I embrace tough problems. If you notice yourself losing focus or feeling overwhelmed, take a moment to really see the people in front of you. Refocus your attention on the people you're speaking with. Getting curious about the people you're talking to, about the position, about the company, can be a great way to stop yourself from overthinking or getting too nervous. Your curiosity can help you connect with your interviewers. Remember, they're not the only ones trying to determine whether you're a fit for the job. You are also trying to decide whether you want to work with the team. Remember to periodically take moments to breathe throughout your interview. A deep breath is always available to you if you need to calm down, gather your thoughts, or even center yourself. You can mute yourself if you don't want your interviewer to hear you taking deep breaths during your interview. Here are a few other things to consider to help you relax during your interview. Interviewers want you to do great. Nothing makes them happier than meeting someone who's great for a role. If this role isn't right for you, the next one might be. Now you have a connection at a company that interests you. Think of the interview as a time to celebrate the things you've accomplished in your career and meet people who may be able to help you take your career to the next level. So we've made it through prepare, practice, and be present. Now let's take a few moments to go through some questions that come up for many people who are getting ready to interview for a new job. Job searchers often wonder how to handle interview questions about breaks in their employment. If at any point in your career you've taken more than a few months off, you'll have a gap in your resume. Resume gaps are far more common than you think. Many people have extended periods of unemployment. Others have taken time off to raise children, care for a family member, or for any number of personal reasons. And sometimes you'll have a break in employment because of a layoff during an economic downturn. A gap in your resume is no reason to avoid applying for a job. Just be prepared to discuss it with the recruiter or hiring manager. If you spent your time away from work doing volunteer work, taking classes, or gaining other valuable skills, go ahead and mention those in your resume. If your resume gap is for a more sensitive reason, like being out of work for an extended period of time or taking care of a health issue, practice sharing that information in a smooth, neutral way. You don't have to reveal too much. You can also be proactive and simply explain your resume gap in your job application or cover letter. If you are new to the workforce, you may not have a lot of job history to discuss in your interview. That's okay. Everybody had a first job, which they had to get without any official work experience. If you've been called into an interview, your potential employer has already seen your resume, so they'll know your background. In order to help the conversation flow, think about relevant experiences you can share in your interview: volunteer work, internships, schoolwork, extracurricular activities, and other valuable personal experiences. Depending on the job, you might even bring up family situations that taught you things you might apply to this job. For example, if you're applying for a job to help run an after-school program for a job in sales or marketing, you can talk about your experiences doing sales for a school or a charity fundraiser. Even if you don't have any experiences that relate directly to the job you're applying for, you can talk about when and why you became interested in the job or the field. If you don't have prior work experience to discuss an interview, remember that your life experiences have led you to apply for that job and has given you some knowledge that you can bring to the workforce. Now let's fast forward for a few steps. Your preparation and practice gave you confidence to complete your job interview and make a great first impression. Congratulations. Now let's talk about the steps you can take to make the impression last and hopefully earn a job offer. The image on this slide shows a thank you email. A thank you note is one extra chance to leave a positive impression on your interviewer and hiring team. So be sure to send a thank you via email within 24 hours to everyone you spoke with, the hiring manager, the recruiter, and any other team members. Your thank you note or email should be brief, no more than 4 or 5 sentences. In your email, be sure to thank the person for taking time to interview you, emphasize how enthusiastic you are for the job, be specific about what you like about the position and what you're excited to potentially contribute to their team. If you can, also mention one specific thing you enjoyed speaking to them about. Even if you had a conversation about your favorite sports team or restaurant, those moments of connection can pave the way for a professional relationship. Be sure to proofread your note carefully and complete a spelling and grammar check. Today, we discuss the ways you can give an interview that leaves a great impression with the potential employer. We discussed the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and be present. During the prepare stage, you do your research, then prep your physical space, equipment, and self. In the practice stage, you rehearse out loud and get feedback from someone you trust or from the interview warm-up tool. Finally, to be present, you focus on the main things you want to get across to your interviewer. You breathe to center yourself and use curiosity to connect with your interviewers. I hope that you'll be able to approach your future interviews with confidence and even find ways to enjoy them as learning opportunities and as chances to grow your career. Now we'll take a moment to review some of the other free resources from Google. If you enjoy video lessons, subscribe to the Grow with Google YouTube channel at youtube.com/Google Career Certificate. The channel publishes a new video regularly covering topics that can help you grow your skills and career. If you're looking to start a new career and land a competitively paid job or build skills to grow in your career, check out Google Career Certificates. Google Career Certificates can give you a path to in-demand jobs with top employers that are currently hiring. You can earn a certificate and prepare for a new career in a high-growth field in under 6 months, even if you don't have relevant experience. You can learn at your own pace and complete the online program on your own terms. Certificates are available for data analytics, advanced data analytics, business intelligence, digital marketing and e-commerce, IT support, IT automation with Python, user experience design, project management, and cybersecurity. To get started, go to grow.google/certificate. Grow with Google is an initiative to help people prepare for work, find jobs, and grow business. Job seekers can grow their skills in order to find new jobs and advance their career. Teachers can learn how to put the latest technology to work inside and outside of the classroom. Small business owners can build their online presence to find new customers. Startups can learn how to get their ideas exposed and the need to succeed. Developers can sharpen their current skills and master new ones. To learn more about this, visit google.com forward. And that concludes our workshop today, Acing Your Job Interview. Thank you so much for attending today's workshop. We truly value your feedback, and if you would, please take a moment to share your thoughts. We would certainly appreciate it. You can access the survey at g.co/grow/feedback. Phone's camera to scan the QR code on this slide. Thank you again for attending. We hope you all have a wonderful day.